Good afternoon and welcome to the 28th meeting of the Honolulu Liquor Commission. I see that we have minutes to approve. Commissioners, may I have a motion?
My motion will be to approve the minutes of the 12th and the 15th meeting as previously circulated.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any objections or reservations? Hearing and seeing none, I also vote aye. The motion carries. The minutes are approved. Moving into our hearing agenda, calling other business, agenda item number 1, Liquor Commission. Discussing regarding proposed system review conducted by Strategic Advisor, Office of the Managing Director, to evaluate Liquor Commission enforcement division policies, procedures, and functionality. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chair Buckley, Commissioners Hong and Dunzer, Acting Administrator, Commission staff. Krishna Jaram, Deputy Managing Director, here on this agenda. Thank you for placing this item on the agenda today. As the Commission is aware, several months ago, the City Council passed a resolution voicing concern with various aspects of operations of the Liquor Commission and expressing a desire to see changes at the Commission, including ombudsman, internal affairs, that sort of thing. The administration has consistently taken the position that we feel the best way to approach any issues is to put in place commissioners who are committed to equity, who are committed to transparency, who are committed to an efficient commission that improves the life and businesses of those we regulate and work with. Obviously, we have some work to do in terms of finding those commissioners. We are hard at work at those, but we are not going to place just anybody in there. This is an important position, and so the mayor is looking closely at people. So I appreciate your patience with us as we continue on that. Together with that, our view of it is that in addition to having the right commissioners there who care about all those important factors, is that those commissioners would then go on and choose an administrator, a permanent administrator, who also cares about equity and transparency and an efficient and well-functioning commission. I know that the commission is in that process right now. And so in the interim, because we're still in the process of filling out the remaining commission members and we're still in the process of identifying that permanent administrator, we have been working over at the administration in some discrete but important project that could assist the commission. And so that's what we're bringing here with a strong recommendation for the commission for your consideration. And I don't know if it's possible to share, but I do believe you have the handouts that we sent. I had that as part of your board package. We're working together with the Strategic Advisor to Managing Director to do what is essentially a system review of a discrete portion of the Liquor Commission. And the purpose of it is to respond to the concerns that were raised by the City Council to assess to assess the enforcement capabilities in particular, and then to formulate recommendations for the Commission to consider. We feel the timing of this is appropriate. Even without a permanent administrator, this work can take place if and when, or when the Commission identifies that person, he or she, I think, would benefit enormously from this work. So if we can slide up for the benefit of the folks in the room, but or maybe not. So there is in the handout that I shared with you, there is a process that we've outlined that will involve some data gathering, interviews, etc. All in all, we're thinking about 4 months for this work to take place. We would work closely with commission staff on this, and we would obviously interact closely with the administrator as well as the acting ASO. Finally, the individual who is going to undertake the system study, her name is Hui Chen. She is the Strategic Advisor to the Managing Director. I believe some of her professional background has been shared in your materials. She was formerly with the U.S. Department of Justice. She was a compliance lead for a number of multinational corporations. I first met her when we were working at the AG's office. She was thinking of relocating to Hawaii. And so we had a good conversation with her, and she came over, and she was the Attorney General's ethics advisor for a period of time. After that, myself and others moved from the state to the city. we were in a point in time in 2021 where there's an enormous amount of federal monies coming into the city. So we wanted somebody to come in and help us devise a process that would make sure that we were using the federal monies in compliance with all laws and regulations. And so we're able to have her join us at the city, where she's been the managing director, strategic advisor ever since. So she helped us design that process. She works on special projects as needed, and if the commission were to be supportive of this effort, this would be one of her special projects that she'd be involved on. I know that she was going to join us online if possible, so you can ask her questions if she did make it online. Otherwise, I'll try to answer questions as best as I can. Thank you, Chair.
Do we have Ms. Chen online?
I'm not sure. She is.
Ms. Chen, can you hear us? Ah, there she is. I believe you may be muted. We're having difficulty hearing you. Seems as though our audio is not working properly. Yeah, I'm sorry, Ms. Chen, we still cannot hear you. Can you hear us? Yeah. Perhaps as we're trying to resolve that issue, if there's anything else you might want to comment on in the interim.
Well, I'm here for any questions the commissioners might have. We think this is a worthwhile project. We think it'll be helpful to the incoming administrator, and Ms. Chen is eminently qualified to do this work. So we hope you'll look on this favorably.
No, this sounds amazingly on point, and beyond just helping the new administrator, it helps the new commissioners as well, for us to have an outside set of eyes to take a look at the processes that are going on. In fact, at the end of the agenda, we're going through step by step each of the pieces of the processes as we kind of come upon them. And so we're kind of reserving time at the end of each meeting for that. This would certainly hurry the whole process along, so it's really appreciated.
Thank you. And just for your awareness, we've done some preliminary work, of course, and so we've looked at the old audits together and had a discussion about them, and we do, obviously, we worked with the acting administrator, and we have an idea of how we want to do this, so.
Yeah, I would echo those comments from Commissioner Hong, and I think that it's good for an agency and an organization to do some periodic review of policies to make sure that they're improving the agency as a whole. I think that's even more important right now, given the current climate and given the resolution that was passed by the city. So I think this is excellent timing. I do wish we could have heard from Ms. Chen. It seems like she may be disconnected at this point, but we have had an opportunity to review her credentials, and her credentials and her experience are very impressive, and I think her ability to come into an agency and do the work that she does would be critical and important for us at this time. I also think that, as you mentioned before, of course we want to identify any issues, if there are any systemic issues, and resolve them in a way that benefits the agency. I think it's also going to be hopefully beneficial for an incoming director to be able to be handed something, some sort of blueprint that they can take, him or her can take, and have some sort of action items ready to implement. And then, as Commissioner Hong mentioned, for the commission as well, for us to be able to see what's going on in a comprehensive report form and understand the types of changes that Ms. Chen would be recommending. So for me, this is very beneficial. I think it addresses some, not all, of the city resolution, but I think addressing the city resolution comes in more than just one item. And I believe this is one critical item of that process. Any other comments from the commission?
I mean, my comments would be, I would echo the same comments that both Commissioner Buckley as well as Commissioner Hong has stated. I also believe it's really good to have an outside pair of eyes looking in to determine what areas, have concerns or issues, and how we can best, in their view, right, fix those things. The only comment I want to make is that I think this is a great thing for an incoming administrator, but I also feel because do not have an administrator and we have not had one for a while, I also would echo, I don't want the time period as we do this to also slow that process down. Only because even to me, him having something or them having something when they come in, if they're there watching this process, that also allows them to use that process for themselves in future endeavors by learning from her. So I'm, because otherwise we'll end up waiting, because in the beginning where you said maybe around 4 months, could be shorter. I'm just saying, we already haven't had one for 6 to 7 months, and so that's my only, I wanna do both to somewhat degree in the same process.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that comment. I just want to be very clear that this is in no way meant to be a step that precedes the retention administrator. That is not the intent. This is meant to be independent while we go ahead and do the important work of filling the commission and finding an administrator. And I'd also like to note to the chair's comment and to vice chair's comment, this is a systemic review. So Ms. Chen will not be looking at individual instances that have been alleged by somebody. This is a systems review.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you, and the complaints themselves will have to handle on a different action item.
Correct.
Mr. Rai, I do have a question. Procedurally, does this require any sort of motion, or are we just having this informationally, or do we put it on a different agenda?
I believe you instruct me to facilitate this process between, I guess, the managing director's office, or and specifically Ms. Chen, as opposed to requiring a vote, because it's not agendaed for a vote. You just instruct me to facilitate the process.
We will defer to the Liquor Commission on the process.
Thank you. Corporate counsel, does that sound correct procedurally?
Yeah, no vote is needed, but you can instruct administration.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments on this agenda item, Commission?
Thank you very much for helping us.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you for
really
your service.
appreciate you bringing this to us and allowing us the time to examine this.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Rai, if we could instruct you
Hello?
to coordinate, oh. Just in time. Do we have Ms. Chen?
I literally just I was able to dial in, sorry, now I'm getting an echo from my computer and phone.
So we can't hear you now, Ms. Chen.
Okay,
Would you
I'm
like
just
to?
gonna do the phone now.
Great, thank you. Would you like to make any additional comments?
No, I wanted to make sure I'm available to answer any questions that you might have for me.
Thank you. Commission, any comments or questions for Ms. Chen?
I don't have any personally.
Oh, yeah, so what do you, when you've looked at the recommendations from the city council, do you feel like the items are, you'll be able to do an adequate review within the 4-month time frame? And to what extent, I guess, have you had experience with this, with the Liquor Commission, or it seems like you've had a lot of experience here in the state of Hawaii, so that'll be really beneficial.
What I'm hoping to do is really looking for system improvement opportunities. So one of the, I think it was emphasized by the DMV earlier that this is really not in response to any specific complaint or specific concern. So just to draw an example for the benefit of the public, if there's an allegation that says Inspector A did not work on March 5th and 6th, and another complaint that comes in says Inspector B was doing unauthorized inspection on April 5th and 6th. I would not be looking to see if those things happened on those days by those, done by those individuals. What I would be looking at is, are the inspectors tracking their work performance properly? Are they showing up to work when they're supposed to be working? Are they conducting their inspections in a manner that is appropriate to their position? So it's really responding to the underlying issues and looking at how the system itself can improve, as opposed to responding to more specific allegations. So the review itself would not be going into specific details to substantiate or unsubstantiate specific allegations, but really rather looking at the system as a whole and say, where are the places where we can make improvements in response to the issues that's been raised. So I think for that, 3 to 4 months, assuming that we can get the documents and data, in a timely manner, I think it's entirely feasible.
Can I ask a question on behalf of the commission? As we're going forward during this 4-month period, 'cause that's an awful lot of time to start and then finish. If the commission should wish to have her report back to them where she is at, would that be a reasonable thing to ask?
What do you mean by that?
Oh, just in terms of, because there may be no other way to communicate. I have completed all the interviews of the employees that I needed to interview. You know, it's not conclusion. It's just sort of in terms of where you are in that process. It's just because I'm trying to figure out a way to communicate to the commission where the process is at during those 4 months where they may not be getting any information, is all I'm saying.
I'm certainly happy to provide updates as necessary. I think the only caveat I would put on that is I'm always a little hesitant to draw conclusions until I feel like I have something close to the big picture. So, as during the process, if there are questions about where are you at, what have you seen so far, I'm happy to provide that.
Yeah, that's
But with
actually
the
all I
caveat
meant, was just in terms of identifying where on the timeline you are, because otherwise they may not have any idea where we are at in that 4-month period. And it would be inappropriate for me to
That
do
should not
that.
be a problem.
Oh, awesome.
That should not be a problem.
Oh, I have one more question. So from, at least from my typical analysis, we do people, process, technology, and I think I have no idea what technology we're using here at the Liquor Commission, and so to the extent that technology can help and assist in the processes that you're making recommendations, I would ask that you keep that aspect in mind.
Completely agree. To me, technology is part of the system. So, and almost no organization these days operate without technology. Technology is very central to how people do their work. So, to me, it's almost impossible to look at a system without considering technology and how it's used. So, absolutely, it would be part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just as a follow-up to that and to summarize, this review process for you would be a systematic review focused specifically on the investigative process within the agency. And that systematic review would include things such as policies, procedures, training, supervision, things of that nature. Is that correct?
Right.
Any other questions, Commissioners?
Oh, really looking forward to it.
And Chair, if I might,
Yes.
just as a last comment, we are aware that the Liquor Commission is full of fine people who care deeply about their work. So this is just an opportunity to get better. And so this is not meant to be in any way a slight on the hard work that's being done here every day.
Yes. Thank you for that statement. And as I stated previously, I think it's healthy for any agency, any organization to do this type of review periodically. And that doesn't reflect negatively on the agency itself. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Chen. We really appreciate you appearing today and making the extra effort to to actually be heard.
Thank you. It was frustrating to hear all of you and see all of you, but not be able to be heard. So I'm glad it finally worked out. Thank you very much.
So, Ms. Fry, if we can instruct you to cooperate with the managing director and Ms. Chen to commence this process.
Yep. Just let me know what administration needs to do to start and facilitate the process.
Thank you, we'll do that.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Ms. Chen.
Thank you.
Okay, moving into our public hearings, calling agenda item number 2, application number 22-24293 from IES Retail LLC. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the Commission, Greg Nishioka, authorization, appearing on behalf of the applicant. To my right is Chris, C-H-R-I-S, Martinez, M-A-R-T-I-N-E-Z. First of all, I apologize for my tire. I was on assignment on the west side. It took longer, not related to a liquor matter, but what else, other matters that I do, and I just didn't have time to. I didn't put my change in my car, and unfortunately, Mr. Luke's jack is a little too small.
We are a relaxed agency, don't worry.
Thank you. We have received the investigator's report, and again, have no changes and additions or corrections at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Rai?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. This application has received 0 written protests, 0 letters in support. Applicant has met statutory requirements for the submission of this application. For the record, a summary of the December 15th preliminary hearing testimony was provided to Commissioner Hollinger prior to the public hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Rai. Commissioners, any comments, questions, or type of action?
So, Mr. Nishioka, a couple questions. So, entrance is only on the left and right side, right,
Take a look at the,
on your floor plan?
that is correct.
And then even the storage space you have in the back, you're gonna be putting that as part of the license space, correct?
Correct. That is outlined in the red.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the whole thing is outlined. I just wanted to make sure I'm reading what I'm reading correctly. Last question I have is, so in the preliminary report, right, it said you guys are gonna tear down the old area and rebuild
It's been done.
completely new, so construction is completely done and you're ready to open.
Correct.
Alright, that's all the questions I have.
Thank you.
I move we approve item number 2, application number 22-24293.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any objections or reservations? Hearing and seeing none, I also vote aye. The motion carries. Application number 22-24293 is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Calling agenda item number 3, application number 22-24294 from IES Retail LLC.
Okay, good afternoon, Chair, members of the Commission. Greg Nishioka, appearing on behalf of the applicant. To my right again is Christopher Martinez. I would add that he is the operations head for the applicant. Again, we have received the investigator's report. No additions, changes, and no corrections.
Thank you, Mr. Nishioka. Ms. Rai?
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. This application has received 0 written protests, 0 letters in support. Applicants met statutory requirements for the submission of this application. And for the record, a summary of the December 15th preliminary hearing testimony was provided to Commissioner Hollinger prior to the public hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Rai. Commissioners, any comments, questions, or type of action?
So, Mr. Nishioka, kind of similar questions. So you only have 2 entrances on the left side of the floor plan, correct?
Correct.
And then, same thing here, it didn't say you're gonna knock the whole thing down, but it did say you're gonna do some construction. Is construction complete?
I believe so.
So you're ready to open?
It is an ongoing operation already.
Okay,
This location did not have a liquor license.
okay,
So this is a new license, a totally new license.
okay. So, I guess the only other question I have is the internal stuff, right? You have your 2 entrance doors, and then you have another door that leads to that really, really large space. Is that just like a doorway that's gonna be open for them to go into the other, area of the, products, to get products?
Storage area.
So, storage?
Storage area.
Okay, got it. No other questions?
Okay. I move we approve item number 3, application number 22-24294.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any objections or reservations? Hearing and seeing none, I also vote aye. The motion carries. Application number 22-24294 is approved. Thank you,
Thank you very
gentlemen.
much, Chair, members of the Commission.
Moving into preliminary hearings, calling agenda item number 4, transfer application number 22-24693 from Imperial Restaurant Consulting, Inc.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Billy Nicola representing Imperial Restaurant Consulting, INC. To my right is Mr. Fabrizio Favale. I will spell that for you, Fabrizio Favale. And we have nothing about to change about the report.
Thank you, Mr. Nicola. Commissioners?
Okay, so, Mr. Nicola, I have a few questions based on your floor plan. So, on Royal Hawaiian Avenue, is that the main entrance that's going into the restaurant area?
Yes.
Yeah, on the Royal Hawaiian is the large door to go to the restaurant.
Okay,
And the lateral, on the corner, is another door
okay,
where it's supposed to be the entrance of the retail room.
okay. So you have a door on the other side for the retail, okay. The other question I have is, so there looks like a front seating area outside?
Yes.
Is that gonna be your seating area? Or is
we
that for
apply
another?
Sorry,
No, so the seating area that's outside,
yeah.
is that for your restaurant or is that for another restaurant or
No,
another
it's
business?
just for us.
It's just for you folks.
We apply for the permit to the city,
Okay,
and we just received the permit a few days ago.
okay,
And is the fence
okay,
eliminated, and
Okay.
so the
Okay.
city said, okay.
okay, no, so just so we can be on the same page, Mr. Nakoba, your licensing space doesn't include that, right? So
No.
if you're going to look to do that, as we move forward, right,
have to
beyond
reapply.
this, you're gonna have to
Reapply.
figure out beyond that, right?
Yes.
Because your area isn't there.
Yes.
So, just so we all know, liquor is
We
not
understand.
gonna be able to go outside the door
Yes.
into the seating area, okay?
Mr. Favale is aware of that.
Okay, and then so that one that has the ex-con ramp up area, that's a door out, is that gonna be the one for the retail area? Okay. Okay. That's all the questions I have.
Covered my question.
All right, I move we approve agenda item 4, application number 22-24693.
Second,
There's been a motion and a second. Any objections or reservations? Hearing and seeing none, I also vote aye. The motion carries. Transfer application number 22-24693 is approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Calling agenda item number 5, transfer application number 22-24918 from Jack Almoana LLC. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Naomi Cole on behalf of Jack Alamoana. Present to my right is the manager, Mr. Kevin Yamazaki. We have no changes to the investigative report.
Thank you, Ms. Cole. Commissioners, questions, comments, type of action?
I'm so bad at names, sorry. Cole, right?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Cole,
That one.
question on the floor plan, so looking at, there's only gonna be one entrance door, and that's through the outside seating area?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I know you have the planters or countertops that are in the corners. So which way will they be entering for that outside seating? Is it gonna be in the middle, or is it gonna be on the left side of your
Oh, it's
outdoor
right-
seating?
Oh, it's right in the middle.
Right in the middle,
And there's a half wall surrounding the whole outside area.
okay. And then, so is it a doorway they're gonna go through, or is it just like an open space?
It's like an open entry.
Okay. About how many people you think you're gonna have seated outside?
It's about 12,
12.
total
Do-
of 3 tables and then the outer perimeter tables.
Okay. And then, based on, you're not gonna have a door, it's just gonna be a walkway in and out. Does your client plan to have someone kinda stationed out there quite a bit of the time?
Yes,
We
it
just
is.
don't want things going out the door that shouldn't be, right?
Yes, there'll be a designated server there.
Okay. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
I move we approve agenda item 5, application number 22-24918.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any objections or reservations? Hearing and seeing none, I also vote aye. The motion carries. Transfer application number 22-24918 is approved.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Calling agenda item number 6, application number 22-24739 from Jinya Hawaii Inc.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Naomi Cole on behalf of Jinya Hawaii. Present to my right is Manager Mr. Robert Fewell, spelled Fewell. We have no changes to the investigative report.
Thank you, Ms. Cole. Commissioners?
So, Ms. Cole, question, so I know there's 4 different three different restaurants, right? You have an office space or kitchen in there. So I guess my question is, based on the spaces, can a customer walk from the bar that's all the way at the end, all the way to the last restaurant carrying their own drinks? Or is it where it's gonna be, where people, only your servers can go in between?
Only the servers for now, because it's set up as 3 different concepts that we don't allow people, we treat it as 3 different restaurants. So obviously you wouldn't be able to bring a drink from one restaurant to another, even though we're not on the street, you're still going, we just don't allow it as a company policy, so it's.
Okay, so I'm just asking because I know you also said for now within your statement, so I wanna make sure, right, that we understand, right? Drinks in each one of these places are meant to
Oh
be
yeah,
in
so
those
it
places.
operates as 3 separate businesses, so you wouldn't be able to buy a drink in one and then bring it into another. It'd be like coming off the street with a beer in your hand or something like that. So
Yeah, I mean, only cause I know it's a one long space.
Yeah, no, we
really, it's one long
don't
space.
allow it, there's no plans on
Okay.
using that.
And then each one of them have their own separate entrances, correct?
Yes,
Into each of the
Yes.
restaurants.
But as one license, your inventory is all going to be.
correct.
Okay, I have no other questions.
Okay, I move that we approve item number 6, application number 22-24739.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any objections or reservations? Hearing and seeing none, I also vote aye. The motion carries. Application number 22-24739 is approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Calling agenda item number 7, application number 22-24817 from Path Food Co. Limited. Ms. Cole.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Naomi Cole on behalf of Path Food Company Limited. Present to my right is authorized representative Ms. Ikuyo Kondo. We have no changes to the investigative report.
Could you spell that name for the record?
Sure, it's spelled first name Ikuyo, Kondo, last name Kondo.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Okay, so Ms. Ko, I have a couple of questions based on your floor plan. So the front entrance will be the one that's at the bottom by Lewis Street,
Yes.
okay? And then at the very back, there's 2 doors that lead out. Is that out into a courtyard or is that an outdoor space?
Yes, lanai space.
Like a
Yeah.
lanai? Okay, is this all on the ground floor or is there a second floor item?
No,
This is
just all, ground floor.
ground floor. So do you have plans to have seating out there? Or is it just like an open space?
Oh, no, yes, we are planning to have 6 small tables, total for 12 seating.
Okay, so 6 small tables out there.
Mhm.
So to delineate that courtyard area, what do you have out there, making sure that liquor will not be passing your boundary space?
Oh, yeah, there's gonna be like a border surrounding that area so that people can't go in and out.
Okay. And then does it lead to other businesses or is it just within your area? Cause obviously, right, I mean, there's spaces on either side, right, for people to walk?
Yes, this is all our space only.
Okay. Okay.
And on the opposite end of the restaurant, I see some doors going out the back. Those aren't tables outside, is it? Is that just landscaping or those circles?
Is that landscaping?
Yeah, this is the
There won't be any
Yeah,
activity
it's
on
just,
that side, right?
yeah, no.
Those were my only questions.
Okay, I move we approve agenda item 7, application number 22-24817.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any objections or reservations? Hearing and seeing none, I also vote aye. The motion carries. Application number 22-24817 is approved.
Thank you very much, Commissioners.
Moving into other business, calling agenda item number 8, request number 23-01443 from Waikiki Brewing Company LP. Mr. Ryoka, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the Commission, Ms. Uriah, Robert Uyoka on behalf of Waikiki Brewing Company. Present to my right, Mr. Andy Flaherty. He's the General Manager of Waikiki Brewing Company, first name A-N-D-Y, last name F-L-A-R-T-E-Y. Also present, Mr. Nick Stewart. He's the General Manager of 808 Craft House, first name N-I-C-K, last name S-T-E-W-A-R-T. This is a request to waive the requirement to provide personal history and fingerprints for the passive investors, the limited partners. They have no management or control over the operations. We did provide personal history and fingerprints for the general partner and the 2 officers.
Commissioners, any questions, comments, interactions?
I do have a list of the general partners. I think it's page 3 of my submission, which shows the percentage of ownership, and a lot of them are trusts holding 0.045%, maybe up to 3%. There are 3 limited partners with 19.7 and 3%, but they're all under 20% and definitely under 25%.
Okay. So, Mr. Ryoka, I'm not sure if the question would be directed to you or if it would be directed to the commission itself, but so based off the list of names, right, I know that obviously they're less than 20%. If guys change in this limited partner position, would that need to be notified to the commission? Of, you know, I mean, as part of being a list, because obviously names would be there. I mean, that's, I guess, my big question. If limited partners are gonna change, notification to the liquor commission, is that something that would have to be done or not done? I don't know the answer to that.
I'm just saying, we would definitely, if we did go, any of the limited partners went more than 25%, we definitely clear them, 100%. I mean, we want them to be vetted, but in this particular, it's just because there's so many and they're under 25%, and because some are 0.45%, just asking that to be waived.
Yeah, no, I'm not denying the ask of the waiver. I guess what I'm saying is, if someone changes from a limited partner or leaves as a limited partner and you get another limited partner that's less than 20%, do they need to be
Is there a
notified?
notification
Does that
requirement?
need to be notified to the commission?
The commission can make that a condition of their approval, that any change to the stated list will just be provided to us in a letter.
Well, they would have to approve, they would have to come to us to approve the change in limited partners anyway, wouldn't they?
Okay, the issue as, and this is a problem we have with, the way the statute and the rules are written, that it captures everybody, so, yeah, I guess they would. Right, Mr. Uoka?
We'd be happy to do that if there are any changes to this list, and notify them and clear them if necessary.
I think the clearance is not, it's so much the
Notification,
the
absolutely.
notification. You treat it just like a member or manager regardless of, you know, unfortunately, regardless of their percentages, that they don't have to be vetted to the same degree if you grant this approval.
Right, if there are any changes, we will notify the commission regarding the limited partners, surely.
Cause, I mean, I'm not against granting the waiver. I mean, basically, you've also stated right in your letter that none of them have been convicted of felony offenses.
Correct.
I mean, my thing would just be if there is a change of a partner, we wanna be notified, I guess, with the same notification that you've kinda checked to make sure that they don't have a felony of any way, shape, or form.
We'll do that.
So, I can make the request to approve, I can, motion to approve request number 23-01443 with my verbiage of notification if unlimited partner changes, as well as if they're confirming that they're not a felon or have no felony offenses.
And if I could just add to that, within 30 days, because that's the standard is 30 days. Within 30 days of the change, it comes before you, and the notification is completed, because we have not typically been required to do the pre-approval.
Great, we'll do that.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any objections or reservations? Hearing and seeing none, I also vote aye. The motion carries. Request number 23-01443 is approved with the conditions noted in Commissioner Hollinger's motion.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Calling agenda item number 9, request number 20-20190 from Vietnamese Social Club LLC. Could you please state your names for the record?
My name is Ellen Fan, and I have my father, Jim Fan, Phan, and we're here to for the notification of the change in member owner under the liquor license.
So it looks like it's 100% change from Miss Mai Wilkes to your father, Jim Fan.
Yes.
And he has submitted his affidavit and fingerprinting, correct?
Yes.
Commissioners, any other questions?
I have no questions.
I had a question. I think the applicant has not met the statutory requirement.
It's the, Commissioner Hong is referring to the investigative report, that this wasn't notified within 30 days, and I believe that can be waived, correct, Ms. Harai?
Well, basically, you'll address the
That would be
late
adjudication.
notification in a separate proceeding. You can take action on the membership change, which will get our records up to date, but it will come back before you to adjudicate the late part of it.
Thank you, Ms. Harai.
Okay. I move that we approve agenda item 9, request number 20-20190.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any objections or reservations? Hearing and seeing none, I also vote aye. The motion carries. Request number 20-20190 is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too, thank you. Moving into adjudication hearings. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon from my squeaky chair. Daniel Jacob, Corporation Counsel, here on behalf of the City and County of Honolulu.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobs. Calling agenda item number 10, LCB 22-0128, Club Hot Ash.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. Keith Kyuch, the licensee. Waive reading of the charge, deny all 3 charges, and ask to be set for contested hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Kyuchi. We can set this for a contested hearing. Do you waive reading of the procedural rules?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Mr. Kyuchi. So, Mr. I, if we could set this for a contested case hearing at the next available calendar date.
And we'll do so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kyuchi. Calling agenda item number 11, LCV 22-0127, Hawaii Yacht Club.
I'll represent to the Commission that I did touch base with the licensee. They've requested a continuance. I have no objection. We can set this matter for March 30th, 2020.
March 30th, Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Very well. Is that an acceptable date, Ms. Ryan?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Then we will continue this matter till the March 30th calendar date. Moving on to agenda item number 12, LCV 22-0122, Kalihi Station.
I represent to the Commission that Greg Nishioka has asked for a continuance to receive the investigative file. I have no objection. I'd like this to be set for March 30th, 2023.
Mr. I, March 30th date is acceptable?
Yes.
Thank you. So this matter will be continued to the March 30th calendar date. Calling agenda item number 13, LCV 22-0124, Mai Tais Grill and Bar. Good afternoon, ma'am. state your name for the record.
Shana Yamana.
Thank you.
Mr. Jacobs, can you please read the charge?
On or about August 31st, 2022, licensee failed to timely submit the name of every person then employed on the licensed premise who is registered with the commission or who is subject to registration on the date and in such manner as directed by the commission in violation of Rule 3-82-38.8 of the Rules of the Liquor Commission of the City and County of Honolulu.
Ms. Yamada, how would you like to plead? You can plead, you can accept the charge, deny the charge, or plead no contest.
No contest.
Motion to accept the plea?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any objections or reservations? Hearing none, I also vote aye. The motion carries. The plea is accepted.
Mr. Jacobs, what's your recommendation?
This violation occurred on August 31st when the licensee failed to submit their annual list. The Liquor Commission did receive the list subsequently on September 19th, 2022. However, that's late. This is a first-time violation. The recommended fine is $250.
Ms. Yamada, any explanations?
So when we first got the original list, I think they were using it as a checklist, and then we realized that they had crossed out all the names, just making sure that they went through it. And we went back to the location to get it updated, and we just missed the deadline by the time we got it back. Since then, the home office is going to be taking responsibility of the list to get it sent in a timely manner.
Okay. My motion would be to approve the recommended fine of $250.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any objections or reservations? Hearing none, I also vote aye. The motion carries. The fine of $250 is approved for agenda item number 13. That's all.
That's it? Okay. Thank you.
Calling agenda item number 14, LCV 22-0126, Rangoon Burmese Kitchen. Good afternoon, sir.
Hello, Commissioner. My name is Kun Sai. First name Khun, last name is Sai. I'm with Rangoon Burmese Kitchen.
Thank you.
Mr. Jacobs, can you please read the charge?
On or about September 7th, 2022, in the City and County of Honolulu, State of Hawaii, licensee failed to ensure that its employee Madeline Jane Grubich was registered as a manager for the licensed premises, have his or her manager's certificate of registration for the licensed premises readily available for inspection while on duty in violation of Rule 3-82-38.9 sub G of the Rules of the Liquor Commission of the City and County of Honolulu.
Mr. Say, how would you like to plead? You can accept the charge, deny the charge, or plead no contest.
Plead no contest.
No contest. Motion to accept the plea?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any objections or reservations? Hearing and seeing none, I also vote aye. The motion carries. The plea is accepted.
Mr. Jacobs, what's your recommendations?
This violation occurred on September 7th, 2022. Investigators found that a manager did have their blue card, it just was not registered to the licensee's business. This is a first-time violation. The recommended fine is $500.
Mr. Say, any explanation?
Madeline, she was working on that night, and I have a little health issue with my gout, so I'm always like, I used to be on site all the time, but then, lately I was like in and out. So on that day, she said that she usually put like somewhere safe her blue card. So on that night, someone cleaned up someone cleaned up the bar and then misplaced the card. So she couldn't find it on that night.
Mr. Jacobs, do you have any information in regards to if it was that she didn't have a card for that place, or she had a card but it was not registered to the business that she was working at?
Yeah, give me a second, please.
Sure.
So the investigative reports provides that they asked the individual for a manager card. After approximately 5 minutes, if they asked if there was anybody else who might have a manager's card, the owner at one point was identified. The owner identified that the individual is registered and asked if Jefferson, the manager, can bring the manager's card to the Liquor Commission office. The licensee was informed about a prior instance in which Another individual did not have her liquor commission card. Apologize, I believe we spoke on the phone, and I believe you had represented to me on the phone that the individual had a blue card, but it wasn't licensed.
Yeah, so they put someplace at the bar, and then all those cards are like misplaced somewhere, so other person couldn't find it too.
So I do apologize to the commission. I was based off of the former mission. The police report does indicate that failed to have it readily available. When the investigator returned to the commission office, they did confirm that Jefferson is an active employee registered at the Rangoon Burmese Kitchen. So I apologize, you had informed me that they had a blue card, but just not for your license, but they did have a license for your card.
Yes.
Okay, so I apologize, I'm not sure why you told me that, but yeah, I can confirm that it was failure to have it available.
Okay. So, Mr. Say, I mean, we wanna make sure guys that are gonna be with the business, right, are gonna have a card.
Correct.
And these, I mean, I believe it's supposed to be on them, right, not just left or held anywhere, okay?
Yes.
So you're gonna make sure that, you need to make sure your managers have that, I mean, it's gonna be a costly thing. My motion is going to be to approve the recommended fine of $500 for agenda item number 14.
I second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any objections or reservations? Hearing or seeing none, I also vote aye. The motion carries. A fine of $500 will be assessed for agenda item number 14. Thank you.
Thank you.
Calling agenda item number 15, LCV 22-0135, Red Lobster. Good afternoon, Mr. Uyoka.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the Commission, Ms. Uriah, Robert Uyoka on behalf of Red Lobster, present to my right, Ms. Ellen Lakey. She's a general manager, first name E-L-L-E-N, last name L-A-K-E-Y. This time I'd like to waive reading the charge and to plea of no contest.
Motion to accept the plea.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any objections or reservations? Hearing and seeing none, I also vote aye. The motion carries. The plea is accepted.
Mr. Jacobs, your recommendations,
This
please.
This violation occurred on September 27th, 2022, when the licensee failed to have adequate time cards for their employees. This is a first-time violation. The recommended fine is $250.
Mr. Uyoka, any explanations?
Mr. Jacob is correct. At that time, as of September 27th, we did not have that, the time card machine. We were in the process of getting it. We wanted to get it approved, of course, by the employer, also by the Liquor Commission was very helpful in approving the type of time card machine. We ended up getting a U-Punch time card machine. We just have, looks like this, and got in October 2022, so about the month after the violation, cost us about $500. So ever since that, we're using it. This will never happen again. We actually have the U-Punch time card machine, so we apologize for the incident. We just want to let the Commission know that we're acting in good faith.
Okay. I guess my question is, Mr. Uyoka, so on the September 27th, 2022 date, you did not have any time cards for anyone, or just for that individual at that time?
At that time, we did not have the machine. But we did have a time card method that I guess was not acceptable to the standards of the Commission. So we did go ahead and get the real thing.
So, Mr. Jacobs, do you have anything in the file regarding that? Because based off the information we have here, right, it says it has a specific person's name, so is it just that one person that didn't have a card?
I have it, but this time card is for him right here, by the way.
Yes, it was a manager's time card.
Okay.
So
But
just,
go ahead.
sorry, just to clarify, so there was a time card, it just wasn't in a process that was previously approved by the Commission, and now
Yes.
you have that system in place, is that?
Yes.
Okay, understood.
And this applies to the manager time card.
Okay. I think, so, one thing I wanna say is I think we're gonna, Mr. Uyoka, I guess work for other issues or instances to figure out what's a good process to use for time cards going forward while you're trying to figure out other ones. So my motion is going to be to issue a letter of reprimand for agenda item number 15.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any objections or reservations? Hearing or seeing none, I also vote aye. The motion carries. A letter of reprimand will be issued for agenda item number 15.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Calling agenda item number 16, LCV 22-0136, Siam Paradise Restaurant and Sports Pub. Good afternoon.
My first name is Suttini, Suttinee. Last name Vijayanath, Wiyanath. I'm manager.
Mr. Jacobs, can you please read the charge?
On or about August 31st, 2022, licensee failed to timely submit the name of every person then employed on the licensed premise who is registered with the Commission or who is subject to registration on the date and in such manner as directed by the Commission in violation of Rule 3-82-38.8 the rules of the Liquor Commission of the City and County of Honolulu.
My apologies. I know I'm going to mess up the name. Can you please pronounce it again?
Suttini.
Last name?
Vijayanath.
Wiyanath. Okay, Ms. Wiyanath, how would you like to plead? You can accept the charge, deny the charge, or plead no contest.
No contest.
Motion to accept the plea?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any objections or reservations? Hearing and seeing none, I also vote aye. The motion carries. The plea is accepted.
Mr. Jacobs, your recommendation?
This violation occurred on August 31st, 2022 when she failed to submit the name of every person employed. It was subsequently received on August 3rd, 2022, however, that was late. This is licensee's second violation. The recommended fine is $350. The first violation occurred on August 31st, 2021, where the licensee paid $250.
Ms. Wiyanath, do you have any explanations?
No.
I have a quick question, Mr. Jacobs. You said that it happened on August 31st, 2022, but then you said they received it on August 3rd, 2022?
October 3rd.
October. I just want to make sure I heard it correctly. Okay. My motion is going to be to approve the recommended fine of $350 for agenda item number.
Can I ask one question of you, Ms. Wiyanath? Do you have any procedures in place so that next year you're not going to be here?
What do you mean like that?
To submit the proper paperwork.
Paperwork, yeah, we on the process.
Okay, I second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any objections or reservations? Hearing and seeing none, I also vote aye. The motion carries. A fine of $350 will be issued for agenda item number 16. Thank you. Calling agenda item number 17, LCV 22-0140, Study Hall Sports Bar and Grill, Smokehouse University.
I represent to the Commission that I did get a hold of this licensee. They told me they wanted a continuance, but I'll see this. Oh, no, I apologize. I did get a hold of the licensee. They did tell me their intent to accept these charges. However, they were unable to make it tonight. I asked that this be continued until March 30th, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobson. Mr. I, March 30th is acceptable calendar date. Thank you. Agenda item number 17 is continued to the March 30th calendar date. Calling agenda item number 18, LCV 22-0141, Study Hall Sports Bar and Grill, Smokehouse University. Mr.
Once again, I'll represent that I made contact with the licensee. They've asked for a continuance until March 30th. I have no objection.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobs. This matter is continued to the March 30th calendar. Calling agenda item number 19, LCV 22-0125, the Pig and the Lady LLC. Good afternoon.
I'm Alex Lay, and this is my brother Andrew.
Mr. Jacobs, can you please read the charge?
On or about September 13th, 2022, at 11:48 p.m. in the City and County of Honolulu, State of Hawaii, licensee failed to have the street and or primary entrances to the licensed premises unlocked during the time customers were on the premises in violation of Rule 3-84-72.2 of the Rules of the Liquor Commission of the City and County of Honolulu.
Mr. Lay, how would you like to plead? You can plead accept the charge, deny the charge, or plead no contest.
No contest.
Motion to accept the plea?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any objections or reservations? Hearing and seeing none, I also vote aye. The motion carries. The plea is accepted.
Mr. Jacobs, what is your recommendations?
This is a first-time violation. The recommended fine is $500.
Mr. Lay, do you have any explanations?
We basically locked the door because we were done already and we were just finish up the night. But then the reason why is because our street is in Chinatown, so there's a lot of homeless and a lot of drunk people that kind of vandalized our restaurant before. So that's why it's no more practice just to lock it. But, yeah.
And when you say you were wrapping things up, did you have it posted that you were closed?
Yep. Yeah. Lights are off already and we were just in there, but I guess they came to the back to check on us.
Mr.
I'll note that the investigative file does indicate the investigators observed people drinking while the doors were locked inside the premises.
It was me and my brother. We were just closing up the day and just having a drink, like a beer.
So, I mean, I understand the hard part is, right, that if you have alcohol out there, right, the door is supposed to be open.
Yeah.
Then if you're serving alcohol at the point where you're not supposed to be serving alcohol, that's another issue, right?
Yeah, it was like almost midnight and we closed at 9, so we were just wrapping up our prep list and stuff for the day and then about to go home. Yeah.
Sorry if I heard that right. This violation is at 11:48 p.m. but
Yeah.
you closed at 9 p.m.
9 p.m. Yeah.
So this
Oh
was
yeah.
almost
So like
3
the
hours
last
then.
guest was probably out by 10. Yeah.
I don't want to do it, but I'm gonna make a motion for the commission to deliberate.
Okay. The commission is in deliberation.
Give me a second. Sorry. Okay. I just didn't grab it with me.
We lost delay.
I apologize. You have to go back to
no problem.
for dinner service. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We're back on the record. Thank you for giving us time to deliberate. Commissioners, I believe we have some questions.
Yeah, so, hold on one second. So, Mr. Jacobs.
Yes.
I'm gonna read through 384-72.2, and then we have some questions on that. Premises, lights indoors. Street or primary entrance to licensed premises shall be kept unlocked during all times that any person other than an on-duty employee is on the premises. Entrances to both booths shall be open and unobstructed. The interior and exterior of the licensed premises shall be well and properly lighted. So, I guess, can you see through the file you have there, is there any indication whether or not the individuals that were in the licensed space at this time with alcohol were on duty or not on duty?
It was represented that there were no other individuals in the restaurant at that time, only the 2 individuals that were stated. The question, I suppose, to you is, were they on-duty employees or not? And does your record state that?
No, it doesn't. The violation observed was that the investigator observed one unidentified person with a factory labeled Miller High Life containing a liquid content. They took that, confiscated it, smelled it, and it was the alcohol. You also have admissions from the licensee tonight as it was them. I don't doubt that if they've admitted to it, that it was them, that it was them. The report certainly doesn't indicate there was lots of people. There was one person that was identified drinking, and that's the information I have here. Of course, if it constitutes a violation or not, that's up to the commission to decide. Certainly, I feel there's enough to find that there is a violation. The doors were locked. You had an individual drinking inside. I believe this commission has previously thought that people off duty inside the premises are considered patrons because they're being served and have alcohol readily available. So that's my understanding how this commission has interpreted that violation in the past. However, you all are free to find whether the violation occurred or not. That's what you're asked to do.
Okay, so.
And I'll also mention that they pled no contest to the charge and then made an admission on top of that. So this is, imposition of discipline only, the finding of the violation has already been concluded.
Correct, Mr. Jacobs.
Okay. So, I'm gonna make a motion to issue a letter of reprimand for agenda item number 19, but I want it understood, right, that any type of liquor that is served, right, with the doors locked, at a later time like that, you gotta be careful with that, right, because, you two might have been there just doing the things you're doing, but it needs to be understood that that's, you shouldn't be doing that, okay?
I second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any objections or reservations? Hearing none, I also vote aye with reservations. I echo those comments. I don't believe that the language of the statute was satisfied. However, it is always serious to have people drinking inside, even if they are employees cleaning up after hours when it's locked. But I vote aye with reservations. The motion carries. A letter of reprimand will be issued for agenda item number 19. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Calling agenda item number 20, LCV 22-0073, Hale Vietnam Restaurants.
To my right is Joseph Williams. He's the president. He is present with counsel Wayne Luke. We waive reading of charges, enter a plea of no contest.
Motion to accept the plea.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any objections or reservations? Hearing and seeing none, I also vote aye. The motion carries. The plea is accepted.
Mr. Jacobs, your recommendation, please.
This violation occurred on May 17, 2022. The licensee sold liquor to a minor. This was a result of the ACE project. The employee of the licensed facility did not ask for ID, and they did not ask the individual if they were 21. This is a first-time violation. The recommended fine is $1,000.
Mr. Luke, any explanation?
The owner has talked to the waitress involved and went over the rules with her, and she sort of insisted that it won't happen again. So that's the most we could do in this situation.
Obviously, remind your client, right, that these things happen like once or twice a year, and that he needs to make sure, maybe remind his servers, because, these are costly issues that come up for them, okay? My motion is going to be to approve the recommended fine of $1,000 for agenda item number 20.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any objections or reservations? Hearing and seeing none, I also vote aye. The motion carries. A fine of $1,000 will be issued for agenda item number 20. I'd also add that serving alcohol to a minor is one of the most serious offenses that we have usually before it's an adjudication.
Yeah,
so please ensure that it does not begin.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobs. Moving into other business, agenda item number 21, Corporation Counsel, information briefing of the Commission regarding procedures for contested and uncontested adjudication matters.
Good afternoon, Commission. Deputy Corporation Counsel Rosella, advising attorney for the Commission.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Kaliko Warrington, Deputy Corporation Counsel, the litigation supervising deputy for the prosecutors here.
Thank you. Commission.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming. As you can tell from just today's hearings, it's always good to kind of go through some of the processes that we're kind of faced with. And I guess some of the questions I think are good for us to discuss for the commissioners and additionally for the public as well. And so that's why we kind of wanted to do it as a public hearing. So we wanted to, we just had an example of this where somebody pleads no contest and then they have an explanation, and it's very unclear as to when we would see other information like the investigative report and whatnot, because typically we don't see it at this time. So if you could kind of go through that process of uncontested what happens, and then contested. In terms of the investigative report and evidence that comes into play. So that was my questions, but maybe other.
Yeah, and I think in the context of, you know, the understanding that we want as much in front of us as possible to be able to understand the full context of what happened, so that we can either assess the correct penalty or assess whether or not in a contested hearing the facts and allegations are sustained. So it's equipping the commission with as much information as we're allowed and permitted to have, so that we can make the best decision possible.
So if you wanna cover the non-contested, contested, but just so we're clear, there is a clear demarcation line between the adjudications and the public hearing. And the difference here is that you guys are one commission that hears both. There are other jurisdictions that have two separate commissions that make it very clear that it's very different. But because of the volume, and because of the frequency in which you guys work, it's a very high load, and this is the best way in which we can move these cases forward. That being said, the first part of our agenda is covered by sunshine. Your adjudication section is not covered by sunshine, and that's according to HRS 92-6, because it is a quasi-judicial proceeding in which you, as the commissioners, act as a trier of fact. You're the judge, the jury, and therefore, the way in which you review evidence is the same way. So there is no public right in an adjudication. There's no public testimony in contested case hearings. In here, we use the term adjudications, but it is a contested case. So we follow 91. So I think that's where we get into some of the issues of, you know, how much you guys can see at the time that you guys want to see it. And that really depends on whether or not it becomes a contested case. Well, it is a contested case, but whether or not they plead, they deny, accept, or plead no contest. Now, as far as if it goes straight to a plea, I think Kaliko can address, you know, their process in which they can present information to you. But once it gets to a contested case, then it is very limited to the record. So what is presented to you is going to depend on the parties that are presenting it. The burden of proof is usually on the agency bringing forth the charge, which is always the agency, which is us, the Liquor Commission. And they have the burden of proof, and therefore they present the evidence by way of the reports, the investigative reports, testimony, oral testimony. Now, if a member of the public wants to come forward with some kind of evidence that's either that may be relevant, they have to come in as either a witness by either party. So, and usually in these cases, we know who the parties are. It's usually the licensee and the agency. So, how they go about doing that, I'm not sure. But they can come in as a witness, and the point is this, it's really a due process issue. Whatever evidence is brought forward they should be able to be cross-examined, and all parties should have the ability to cross-examine or question the witness. Now, same thing, if for some reason the public wants to participate in they need to come in as an intervener, they need to come in as a party, because all the rules will apply to this member of the public. And they should have the opportunity to be cross-examined. Now, if people are bringing evidence to the commission on their own, that's a problem, because that would be considered ex parte communication, and it's highly inappropriate. It would be as if a judge went and talked to witnesses themselves, sought other information. Now, in a regular jury instruction, you would be told as a juror that you're not allowed to do outside research, you're not allowed to even read the newspapers or look at the internet, because your record, your decision should be based on the record before you. And that is what is brought up in a contested case hearing. I think you guys get that. You guys have any questions about that procedure?
No, it's so nice to hear it just clearly stated to us, and I'm glad this is recorded so that we can play it back whenever we need to.
Yeah. So, but the difference is that I mean, so when we have our contested case, we are bound by rules of evidence, you know, we have burden of proof, we have all these sort of parameters that we, and you can ask questions of the witness yourself. You can ask for more evidence if you want, right? But it really has to be based on the evidence that's brought before you and not outside sources. Now, the question is whether or not you need more information after the plea is made or something. So I can bring that over to Kaliko.
Okay, so just kind of in general, I think the procedures for adjudication hearings are governed by Rule 3-85-91.7. And basically it says that, you know, when the licensee who's been notified to appear before the commission, they can either admit or deny the allegations contained in the notice of hearing. If the licensee admits the allegation contained in the notice of hearing, the commission shall determine what action, if any, should be taken against the licensee. So normally our job at this point, and it kind of happened tonight, is there was already the plea made, and basically they admitted the allegations. So for that, the violation occurred. So our job here is really to make sure that the record is correct. So if they start to say something and give an explanation that wasn't consistent with what we had, then we would definitely clear that up on the record and speak up at that point. Now that's what would happen for something that wasn't a contested hearing. If it was a contested hearing, it would be very different, and there's specific sections which govern how the procedure of that is done and how evidence is taken. And at that point, we would present what evidence we have, you know, the licensee would present what evidence they have, and that would be the evidence that is presented to the commission. There are rules that allow to take further evidence and whatnot, but I think the reason why that's important that the commission considers just the evidence that is presented to them is that's the record that's actually gonna go up on appeal if there is an appeal. So if there is an appeal of the agency's decision, then it would be governed, you know, by the regular rules, you know, and go through circuit court. Yeah, is that chapter 91?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and just to note that if there is ex parte communication or evidence that's brought in outside of the record, that would be a basis for reversal, and a basis for appeal by any of the parties. So I just want to make that clear so that we avoid any sort of further muddying of the waters or, you know, any sort of reason to get reversed for any reason. And so that you guys' decisions are based on everything that's clearly on the record that the appeals court can rely upon.
And they do, you know, when we do send out the notice of hearing, we also make a request for disclosure, so of all the witnesses that they're gonna bring, all the exhibits that they're gonna do. And we also make the request that, we allow them to make that request to us as well. So they have the ability to get the investigator's report, you know, and see all of that, those documents as well. However, when they are pleading, either admitting or pleading no contest, they're basically admitting to the allegations that were made in the notice of hearing. So we just wanted to say kind of that they're admitting to what the violation is.
Is it customary that on the contested hearing that we just get all of the information on that day? Is that the...
That's my understanding, is we actually present it to you
Okay.
when we
When you
actually do the
present?
contested
Okay,
hearing, yeah.
I see.
I think that's also one of the reasons why we schedule contested hearings at different days, because we've learned that, one, it's good for scheduling purposes. You know, you folks wanna know if something is actually gonna go. And it allows us to, you know, make sure that the witnesses are here, because we do have to subpoena the witnesses as well. So all the witnesses and the evidence will be available for a real contested hearing. That's why we actually hold it on a different day.
Yeah, so unfortunately, you don't get to preview the investigative report, and you don't get to preview any, like, police reports. And if they don't have a police report to present to you, because that's not part of their evidence, it's really their decision to decide whether or not it's relevant information. Now, whether or not, say during the course of the contested case, things come up and further evidence is needed, you could maybe even ask for continuance or go for further investigation. I'm not sure how that would actually proceed.
That's a possibility if we actually needed, you know, to get more evidence because we haven't met our burden, so to speak. Then I think that we could probably do that.
But it's really a question of relevancy too, right? Like if it's a civil charge, administrative charge and there's criminal aspects to it, is that relevant to you guys making your decision? Do you need that information in order to find that a violation has occurred? Or whether, if it's one, if it's relevant, or two, is it sort of make work for the agency? You kind of have to decide whether or not that's going to be the case at the time.
I'll actually give an example of that. We frequently get, when they serve liquor to minors, they always, there's a criminal citation that's issued to whoever the server is. And they have to go deal with that separately before the court system. And a lot of times they say, oh, we got off, we're good. That means that we don't have this, we shouldn't have a violation. And how we explain to them is that's a whole separate issue. Whether or not the police officer showed up at district court is a different thing. But we have a different burden of proof, and we're actually citing the licensee for the violation. So it's actually a whole different separate matter.
Yeah, I think the contested case rules make a lot of sense, at least to me. If you have questions, of course, keep asking them. But to me, I mean, you sit in these a lot. In most circumstances, the licensee is pleading either admitting the charge or pleading no contest. The way I understand that is there's no question at that point whether or not the violation occurred. They've admitted to it, or a no contest is essentially the same in that respect. But now whatever is said in a no contest with right of explanation goes to what we will assess as a penalty. So in that context, what do we have to be able to make that determination? Of course, we have the context of the licensee providing his or her explanation, but is there anything else that we can look to that may be relevant in assessing what kind of penalty we want to impose?
I think the licensee's explanation, I think, is probably a big majority of it. For example, okay, you didn't check this person's ID. What are you gonna do next? Maybe they got a machine. Maybe they terminated that employee. Who knows, right? For us, we can basically let you folks know if it's a first violation or second violation, because that would make a difference, and then you can kind of follow up and be like, if it's a second violation, why didn't you guys fix it last time when you folks were here? So I think that's where the information we can provide is helpful to you folks for the recommended fine stage or the action stage at that point.
So for me, I don't really have a ton of questions on the contested case things. I mean, most of the information that comes up, look at it, whether they've made the burden or not is what I'm going to go by. But when you start coming with cases that guys either admit or plead no contest, I think some issues come up where when you read the specific statute, right, the information that they're providing doesn't always, it kind of shows there's a violation. He's already saying there's a violation, but I can't sometimes get to the point of being able to say, yeah, that warrants that penalty. And so that's why I'm wondering, when we ask for further information, some of it is to get enough information on our end to determine that the penalty that they're saying, right, is a warranted thing, right? Because they've already admitted, but yet how do you weigh whether or not you penalize somebody that much versus something else, right? Now obviously, right, I think this commission has taken harder stances on selling to a minor or minors drinking, but other things, right, it's really...
It was very useful that Mr. Jacobs gave us some of the contextual history of today's hearing, because just kind of listening to it in a vacuum and looking at the actual rule, it didn't really seem appropriate in some sense that the violation occurred. But since he already admitted it to it, going through this process with us was very helpful to contextualize what's the next process and step in terms of having that historical background to set what we would set as the penalty.
And I think on my end, my harder part is I'm not an attorney. I can barely sometimes read through these and really figure out exactly what they say and what they mean, right? I'm going off of words, right then and there. And I'm also trying to run adjudications, which is not the easiest thing, but we're trying. And so how much, I guess the bigger question is, when you have that, the information that they're providing, even though they're pleading no contest, can you ask for more information? And can you, if there isn't that information, can you actually move it to another date and see if they can get that information? Or is that something that is not recommended because they've already pled no contest or guilty?
And maybe I can provide an example that just occurred, and I think part of what spurred this conversation was there was a licensee which pled no contest, in explaining, the situation on the evening of the violation, it came out that there was a police report. Of course, we don't have that police report. We don't know what that says. We don't know if that brings any relevance to what we would determine as a penalty or not, but it wasn't before us, so it's hard to determine what was really going on and how do we put that into the context of a penalty. So should we or could we have asked for that or continued the matter, or is that something that, in a contested case hearing, I would completely agree. The burden would be on the licensee to bring that into evidence. But in a situation where they pled no contest and they're trying to explain why they should be essentially assessed as a lighter penalty, how do we approach evidentiary matters in that context?
Yeah, just because you mentioned the particular instance, in that instance, there was a supplemental report that discussed the act of the investigator getting punched. We do not have the criminal HPD report. I actually discovered it, that there's 2 items on that. I discovered it in the second one, but you had the licensee admit that it happened. And so when we got to the second one, I realized that the supplemental report was in the back, and I thought about bringing it up right there, but you guys had already made your decision. There had already been an admission that it had happened, so I felt I would just muddy the water. So, and the proceeding had already been passed. You guys voted on your fine on that one. So, you know, obviously on some instances, we do our best, but keeping every single fact, especially when you're asking questions, is difficult, but we do our best. And there's no excuse, of course, when we do get it wrong, so I apologize to any event I ever misspeak.
Well, we certainly don't know what the licensee will
Of
say.
course, of course.
So,
Also, I just want to bring up a point. So in contested case hearings, when the licensees do present evidence, they are under oath. Once they've, and you really, that's where you find whether or not there has been a violation, and then everything else goes towards penalties. But they are not under oath when they're saying those things,
Right.
just so you guys know.
Right.
And it just might go towards weight, but, those safeguards are in place because of the record, to make sure that the record is clear, because then you could be penalized for any oath violations if it goes on appeal.
well, and to follow up on that, in a case of no contest where they're providing an explanation, of course, that's, as you stated, not under oath. If they say something, do we ascribe that to weight? Is that better than asking a follow-up for evidence to corroborate that statement?
Because at that point, I'm not sure what the evidence would go towards. Is it to validate the plea, or is it to just give more
Penalty.
information towards penalty?
That's what I would say.
Yeah. So it would be similar to say, victim witness statements once the conviction has been made, and does it go towards? I mean, it's not evidence, but does it go towards the penalty phase, right? Of what the judge would give as far as any sentencing would go, and that's in the criminal aspects. But similarly, that's sort of what you're asked to do. Whether or not you can ask for more evidence or need more evidence, I'm gonna leave that to the adjudications attorneys.
Oh, well, I know there's rules that specifically say like if you wanted to, take more evidence and request more evidence, you can continue for that. However,
I'm sorry to interrupt, is that in a contested case, admission, no contest, or any of the above?
well, I'm looking here, it says Rule 3-8591.9. It says that at any time before the Commission's final decision, the Commission on its own and upon motion for good cause shown may reopen an adjudication hearing for the purpose of taking further evidence. The reopening shall be at the sole discretion of the Commission. Further evidence may be taken either through oral testimony, oral hearing, or by certification of written questions to the parties. So
I would think that would be under contested cases, yeah.
possibly, but
Even for, arguably even for penalty phase?
it's definitely for contested cases for sure. that's normally where it occurs. I think when it's a non-contested, you know, it really kind of goes towards whether or not the licensee is trying to give any mitigating factors of why they shouldn't be penalized. You know, they're gonna say, sorry, it won't happen again, that kind of thing. And for us, that just goes to the weight, which is your folks' decision to make, yeah.
Yeah, again, that's why I'm asking more questions centered on the no contest, because A, that occurs the
It's a
vast
good
majority of the time.
85% of the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Either they admit or they plead no contest, right? And then they're basically hoping for leniency and everything else, right? And, you know, in ultimateness, I think, me personally, I wanna be as fair as I possibly can, and some of that then determines whether or not that evidence is weighty enough for me, because yeah, they've admitted they did something wrong, but then does that mean automatically on our end, well, it's too bad you're getting the max then, which that could be deemed bad, right? Like,
No, I mean, the penalty phase is, those are just recommended fines.
right.
I mean, that's totally solely up to your discretion, as you guys know, because you guys have been giving letters of reprimand or whatever you guys want to do, it's up to you. And here's something to think about, and I haven't run this by anyone, but this is just off the top of my head.
That was the purpose of this, was just to have a discussion.
You guys vote to accept the pleas, right?
But we could vote not to accept the pleas.
I mean, but you guys have no evidence to base that on, based on
Mhm.
what they say.
Right, especially at that stage,
Yeah.
because it's early on, the charge has barely been read, so we wouldn't have much to deny that. But I guess, I mean, for me at least, I want to be able to understand the full context of a no contest plea so that I can assess the penalty I think is best, but I also have to balance that in the parameters of what is acceptable in terms of evidence and bringing that in or accepting it or using it. And I think that's where the no contest is a little bit murkier, so I think that was one of the big reasons why we wanted to have this discussion, was to be able to clarify what conditions allow us or not allow us to bring in that type of further evidence.
The only other thing I wanted to say was that, you know, these hearings are under 28191, and basically, you know, we are asking the licensee to respond and say why their license may not be suspended, revoked, or why any penalty should be assessed. So the range of penalties is actually quite great, which also includes suspension or revocation of license, which has happened before, based on either the number of violations that occurred of the same type that were very serious. So, you know, it is a wide range of what the penalty phases could be. I don't know if that helps, but you know, that's kind of what it is.
I have one additional question, it's slightly off topic, so if anyone else has any questions related to this, please.
How off topic?
It's related. So you had mentioned previously, communications that were coming in ex parte, particularly as they mattered specifically to an adjudication, and why, that's not appropriate, and why there are certain steps in place to provide due process, et cetera, et cetera. What if there's, an ex parte type communication that's not directly related to an adjudication, but has some general complaint or fact, that person wants to put in front of the commission, but isn't specifically related to some evidentiary question or some adjudication item specifically?
So this will go back to agenda item number 1, which is the commission needs to have a procedure or some kind of system in which if you guys get emails directly from the public, that you can submit it to either administration or some entity or agency that will relieve you from that duty of either having to communicate, advise, or share whatever information you have as a commissioner to the public. That's out of the public purview, right? I mean, so that is something that we will have to be talking to MD's office and wage heads on what procedures are either in place or what needs to be in place to protect you guys really from any sort of exposure.
The problem is that her scope is fairly limited, you know.
I know, but I'm about to ask her to widen it. Okay?
And I'm
You're
looking
the
at it from a
boss.
public standpoint too.
Right.
Obviously, if people are coming to the commissioners with information that they believe the commissioners need to digest and consider, that's something that the public needs an avenue to get that into the right hands, and to be properly considered, so to speak.
Well, so that would be public hearings, right? That would be the public hearings part, but if it's related to an adjudication, that's completely different, right? So if they have some kind of evidence, like I said, you know who the parties are. It's either the licensee or the agency, and whoever they wanna be a witness for, they can talk to them. But they should not be talking to you guys.
But within the operations of the Liquor Commission itself, if that's what they're trying to give input on, it seems appropriate for the commissioners as a whole to hear it, but to send it to one and then to kind of have this weird burden of what should you do with it
It should go to
is
the
not-
administration, not
Yeah.
individual commissioners, and I can see
Right.
the problem with that.
Right.
So it should go to the commission, and the commission should have a process to either put it on the agenda or disseminate the information or deal with it that's appropriate under sunshine, so that it's not behind closed doors. It should be presented.
Because we certainly don't want those things to be behind closed doors.
Right, and it shouldn't, because I think, you know, obviously if it's like a public complaint or anything, but there should be a procedure, right?
Right,
I mean, it
right.
shouldn't just be every complaint should be put on the agenda, but there should be some kind of vetting of,
Yes.
of the input or information from the public.
And I guess my question is that your potential tasking is maybe an indicator that we don't have a clear process right now.
I am not aware of anything right now, although I do know that there might be a 3-tier process. I just don't know what in practice it is.
Ms. Rai, I don't know if this is included in what Ms. Chen may be reviewing, but perhaps if we can mention that this is something that she might review as part of her.
I think that communication needs to come, I mean, through me. I'm not sure,
Well,
I'm
so-
not defining her scope, really, I mean,
I think it's involved, I think it's part of the audit, right? Like what's the process in which complaints are made? I think that was part of the act or part of the bill as
Ombudsman
well.
process.
Is what is the process in which we deal with complaints? And there is a process, it's just, I'm not, so like if it's a complaint against enforcement, it goes through one way. If it's a complaint against commission, it goes another way. I'm just not quite sure what that is.
But if we don't know that, how the heck does the public know?
Well, the public would it would all go to the administration, and then it would be then dealt with according to the type of complaint it is. That's what I've been told. I don't know if that's
I mean, that's correct, it sort of depends on who you're complaining about.
correct.
Is at what level, because if, it would not make sense to tell me about a complaint about myself. It either is handled at the commission level, or a complaint about a commissioner would not go downstream to me, it would go upstream or laterally, ethics, the mayor, what have. I mean, there's
Yeah.
actually, we could sketch it out, but I kinda don't wanna, I mean.
Right, I mean, I think that's something that we will deal with agenda item number 1.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are different avenues, right? There's ethics, I think
Because
there's
they've
a
all been,
state,
they've all been
there's
pursued
ombudsman.
before in the past, which is why I'm familiar with the flow.
Yeah, yeah. So, I think that answers your question a little bit, to sort of get an understanding that it's sort of gonna be a working process, in conjunction with agenda item number 1.
Yeah, I would hope that Ms. Chen would look at that as part of her process. And that whatever is decided, it would be made available to the public, at least in some way that they can understand what the process is.
I
Because
think
people do
that's the
ask me, and I'm
idea.
not entirely sure what to tell them sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's the idea. For the hope.
Well, the written, the anticipation, or her acknowledgement is that, the written report would be public information. But up until then, it's not, because it's like an ongoing investigation.
Yeah.
want to thank you for this kind of open Q&A to help us understand and get better. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all of you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, continuing on, other business agenda item number 22, liquor administrator legislative update, Ms. Reiner.
I don't have anything to add, you know, I've previously circulated the table of the purely liquor bills, all 27 of them. Four of them actually were actually came up before, Consumer Protection and Commerce today, which we did not get to observe because it was a little close to hearings. We did submit testimony, providing comments on all four. And I'll just sort of keep you generally updated, on where we are at as those bills make it through the process. That's about it, unless someone has questions about it.
You know,
Yeah.
questions?
Basically, it's kind of how it's worked in the past is that Honolulu, because we're situate here and we have access to a system that the neighbor islands do not, we'll file our testimony first, and then the neighbor islands will file something concurring what we had filed. So that's what has happened in this case. It's just easier for us to do it first, because we can get our, just in terms of process for those who, first timers, all of our written testimony is cleared through an individual, the legislative liaison, through the mayor and MD's office before we file it. So, the day before or whatever, send it to, Mr. Wong, says where we plan to find, then, he'll give the okay, and then we'll upload to the system.
Continue on then, agenda item number 23, liquor administrator, administrative matters, Ms. Sarai.
I don't have anything to add to what I previously circulated in my weekly report with respect to whether or not, because I indicated in the hearings memo, the earliest that we could return to sort of commissioner participation. My understanding, and this is something that doesn't have to be decided, we'll have to, you might wanna think about it, I don't believe it's gonna have to be an all or nothing. If you wanna have that ability, and it has to do with notice and access, if you wanna have the ability to occasionally use as a Band-Aid for quorum, virtual or remote participation, we have to reopen the process to how it used to be, kind of, where applicants, licensees, adjudications, I think before we said if you're contesting, you have to be in person, but it's an all or nothing kind of thing. Today, and unfortunately today was not a really good example of how this process might work so well, because it clearly did not. And we've been rusty at it only a couple of months, and it didn't really work out that satisfactorily, so something to think about anyway. Because right now we can proceed as we have established in our noticed agendas that everything is in person. But we can change that, but you can't unfortunately pick and choose according to an emergency or a anticipated situation. This was kind of an exception.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, disappointing answer, but yes.
Did you guys want to go full or not, open it up to virtual?
I think the goal was that if any of the commissioners were absent, that we could attend electronically, not really just for the commissioners.
The concern with only 3 commissioners, any one issue could lead to breaking quorums.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not sure, I think the rules say, and I can double check, but I think the way the rules are written, it is for full public participation. And that's how, and in that way, commissioners safest way is to just make your, because I think the previous commission had decided that they want everything to be in person. This makeup of this commission, if you guys want to open it up virtually, then it would, I think it would be fairer if it was opened up to everyone virtually.
But we would need to know about that decision when we post the agenda for the next week, because there, I don't know if you recall what the agenda used to look like, but it had quite a bit of information in terms of the various ways that the remote participation could take place. So,
Yeah, so they would have
I would
notice
need to know.
as far as how to submit testimony, how to, you know, the rules about online interaction, as well as if there is a failure, then you'd only have 30 minutes and the entire meeting would be shut down, not just them. And they can, you could just move on if there's a problem, but you would have to give notice of the next hearing date.
Yeah, I think that was, not to cut you off, but I do believe that was the biggest reason the prior commission wanted to go all in person, was the commission was here and we had that 30-minute where we couldn't do anything, and then technically everything was canceled at that point. There's nothing you can move forward with, because I don't even think we could do adjudications that day either, right? Because we couldn't do the public or anything else, right? I think after that incident is where everybody decided to go to full in person.
Yeah. Yes.
And, yeah.
So there are new rules governing that aspect of the Sunshine Law, which really involve notice and fairness to the public. So having spotty, you know, this week we're gonna be virtual, this week we're not gonna be virtual, as a member of the public, arguably, they could say the
Sure.
inconsistency is not fair or not proper notice. I mean, arguably, I don't know if anyone has made that, but, you know, I think we should think about it from the view of the public and what's fair to them when we're thinking about applying the video aspect.
So procedurally, we wouldn't need a motion to approve the use of that technology, we would just direct.
No, I think you just announce and you you direct me, it gets published on the agenda, and then that's the notice. So you would just tell, but I would need to know in enough time to get it on the agenda for the next week.
When it was opposite, when we went from virtual to in-person only, that was really for fairness to the licensees, so that they knew
Yeah.
that if they had to appear in person, they could no longer appear.
But it was an announcement, and then we published.
You guys put it on the website.
But it wasn't a vote,
No,
is
no,
what
no.
I'm saying. It was an announcement, we blasted it everywhere, and then it was published on the agenda
Yeah.
on the Friday before the Thursday. So we did a lot of disclosure,
Yeah.
but
But I think we also put it out, right, like 2 or 3 meetings in advance, right, that we were gonna be starting to go back in person.
But I think, so I have travel in June. So if in advance of that, we're still at 3, better to have a planned virtual or not to have a meeting, right? And I think for the public, it's probably better for us to.
or we just
work on
don't
that.
schedule that day, that Thursday. I mean, if we know, I mean, the difficulty is if you have a public hearing on a license application, because it triggers the obligation to republish in the paper notice of that thing. If it's one of those surprise ones as opposed to a plan, because we do have planned,
Days.
dark
Yeah.
days. And that's, you know, if we know in advance, we just won't schedule stuff on that day. And then there may be complaints about it, but at least there's not any of that scramble to, get everybody to not come or whatever.
So you have some time to decide, or is it gonna be you guys have to decide fairly soon?
No, just wanted to bring it up as an option, right, so.
Whatever, I mean, throughout the year, I'm gonna have travel I'm gonna have to do, I mean, but again, some of it will be work, some of it won't be, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest, I try to plan it in between Friday and Wednesday, or Friday and before Thursday, but again, you know, things can happen, but I don't know.
It's really
I don't know the view of whether or not it's wise to go to 100% virtual again, knowing that if we decide we don't want to do that, how long it takes to change that, and vice versa. But then I also know it is easier to conduct business with only 3 people, where if you had to call in or virtually, it would provide the licensees better benefit. But how do we? I don't know.
Something we don't need to decide this evening.
But I'm glad we know some of our options.
Yeah.
Yeah, and going from this mode to the virtual participation is the fast, easy one. It just needs to be put on the agenda for the next week in time. It's is going back to the all in-person only is the one that takes a lot more disclosure for fairness and stuff and planning.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Ms. Rai?
Nope.
Great. Meeting is adjourned.